It's Combine Week, everybody, and we started off with a little mock draft Monday.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And it's the last week of February, everybody, and it's Combine Week from Indianapolis. Matt Derry with you, Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. What's happening, everyone? Hope you are doing well and had a good weekend. It's warming up out there. Feels like spring, sort of. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Lions. For this, a Monday is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Nick Baumgardner from theathletic.com, who covers the draft, will be at the Combine. We'll have him on tomorrow on this very show. We are working on a Thursday guest as well. Don't forget, tomorrow, Brad Holmes speaks at the podium. So does Dan Campbell. So we'll get thoughts on what those two guys had to say tomorrow as well. We got a mock draft Monday. We do it each and every off season between the end of the Super Bowl and the start of the draft, as we do each Monday, a mock draft Monday. So today we'll go to our friends at thedraftnetwork.com and see what they think the Lions are going to do at number 28. Also, Pro Football Talk came out with their top 100 free agent list. There are 3 Detroit Lions in the top 41. Is it 41? You prep before the show and you already screw it up. We have 3 Detroit Lions in the top 38, We'll tell you who those guys are coming up momentarily on the show. Also, Matthew Stafford in the news. Sounds like the Rams have told his agent, sure, shop him around. See what's out there. Stafford wants $50 million a year. And I'll tell you what I think of that coming up shortly on the show. And a call of the day. One of our everydayers checking in. If you want to be a call of the day, please go to www.speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page, DERY podcast page. Leave a voicemail and we'll play the best one on the show a couple times a week. By the way, I called some of you out. I said, we haven't had a good call of the day in a while, and some of you responded, so appreciate that. Had some good submissions, but we pick one for today. All right, Lions brass, everybody down in Indianapolis, great town. Great place to hold the Combine there in the beautiful, I was almost going to say RCA Dome. Gosh, I'm like dating myself here. Remember, it was the Hoosier Dome, RCA Dome. No, it's Lucas Oil Stadium. And so the entire week of the Combine, including on Saturday, when quarterbacks will throw, and that'll be televised on ABC, Shedeur Sanders of Colorado is not going to throw at the Combine. And I just think this is ridiculous. It's stupid. I get it. He wants to do his pro day. He wants to hype up the pro day. He'll just interview at the Combine and walk around. But part of the great thing about the Combine is all the teams are all there at once. It's a big showcase for players. And some guys just feel like, nope, I'll just do my pro day and that's it. I think that stinks for the fans and certainly for the teams. But we'll see if Cam Ward decides to throw, Jackson Dart, all of these guys when it comes to quarterbacks. Good news here in Detroit. We don't have to worry about quarterback. We got one here in Jared Goff. All right, mock draft Monday. Let us go to our friends at thedraftnetwork.com. This week's mock draft, which was just updated on their site, was written by Keith Sanchez, who is the other co-host of the Locked On NFL Draft show right here on the network. Keith put together a pre-combine mock draft. We'll give you the top 5, which we always do. He's got Cam Ward going to Tennessee, number 1, quarterback from Miami. Abdul Carter, edge from Penn State, going number 2 to the Browns. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado, 3 to the Giants. Patriots taking Will Campbell, the big tackle from LSU, at 4. And Travis Hunter sliding all the way down to number 5, the wide receiver / cornerback to Jacksonville. He's got Jalen Milroe going 6 to the Raiders, and I think that's preposterous. But whatever. Jalen Milroe couldn't complete a pass at the Senior Bowl. I don't think he's going in the top 10, but you never know. Teams get a little crazy when it comes to quarterbacks. All right, so we scroll down to number 28 and your Honolulu Blue and Silver Gladiators, the Detroit Lions. And Keith has the Lions taking at number 28. Edge rusher, Texas A&M, Shemar Stewart. This is not the first time we've mentioned his name. It won't be the last time. Keith writes, quote, the Detroit Lions offseason needs to be improving about their defense, and it starts with the defensive front. Shemar Stewart working opposite Aiden Hutchinson should get a lot of one-on-one opportunities and be able to make plays. The Lions' goal is the Super Bowl. In order to get there, they need a defensive front that has the opportunity to be dominant, end quote. Now, you ask, whom went before Shemar Stewart? Mike Green did go number 19 in Keith Stewart's mock draft. Keith Sanchez's mock draft to the Tampa Bay Bucks. That's the edge from Marshall that we have talked plenty about on this very show. Kenneth Grant from Michigan going 24 to the Vikings, which, boy, if he dropped to 24, that would be an absolute steal. But other than that, that's pretty much the highlight here. If the Lions were to draft a guy like Shemar Stewart at 28, you would have no argument from me. We have talked about the edge rushing options for the Lions at 28, whether it's Mike Green, whether it's Shemar Stewart, whether it's Jack at Ohio State, Jack Sawyer, any of these guys, I think would be a great fit for Detroit. Now, again, bear in mind, Brad Holmes does not pick based on need. All right. Now, did the Lions need Aiden Hutchinson when they got him at 2? Of course. Did the Lions need Penei Sewell, a big tackle, when they got him at that spot at 7 years ago? Of course. All right. But I think Brad Holmes is going to look at his board and take the guy that he thinks is the best fit for the Lions and is the best player, regardless of position. With that being said, I think Holmes would be making a major mistake if he's not taking the best available defensive lineman, whether it's an interior guy or an exterior guy, a rusher, an edge rusher, whatever, at 28. Because I just feel like you look at the offense and you look at how stacked the Lions are. They're comfortable with the quarterback room. They're comfortable with the wide receiver room. They're comfortable with the running back room and the tight ends and the offensive line. And again, the free agency will be March 10th. So we will know if a guy like Kevin Zeitler will be back. We will know if the Lions decide to let Zeitler walk and acquire somebody else and pick up somebody else before the draft. But right now at edge rusher, you've got Aiden Hutchinson, you've got Zadarius Smith, you got Kaminsky possibly coming back from injury, Pascal, who is he really an edge? Is he really an interior guy? Some other guys are free agents. Other guys are free agents like Al-Qadim Muhammad. The Lions need help at that spot, and you must disrupt the quarterback if you're going to go the next step. And the next step for the Lions is the Super Bowl. And what have we seen the last 2 times the Lions played in the playoffs? Second half against the Niners, Brock Purdy was able to flex. He was able to do whatever he wanted. There's not enough pressure on him. When there was, he was able to escape. This year, Jaden Daniels in the playoff game against the Commanders had all freaking day to throw. Aiden Hutchinson might not be 100% to start the season. Aleem McNeil likely won't be 100% to start the season. Got to build up that defensive line. Look what Howie Roseman and the Eagles have done the last couple of years with all the draft picks up front, the Jalen Carters and the Nolan Smiths and the Milton Williams and all of those guys that Roseman took in the draft that are just been dominant players up front. So if Shemar Stewart out of A&M, bigger guy than Mike Green, I know we talked about him last week on the show. Combine was a little bit, or Senior Bowl was a little bit up and down. We'll see how he does at the Combine. He's a good football player. And he's considered a first-round pick, and he's a guy that can get to the quarterback. So I would have no issue with that mock draft at all if Stewart was there at 28 and the Lions decided to take him. If it's between Mike Green and Stewart, I'm taking Green because I just think he gets home more. And I think that's what the Lions need right now. I know they like size. I know they like tweeners. Guys like Onwuzurike who plays inside and outside. Guys like Pascal that play inside and outside. But I'd rather get the guy that can bend around the edge and get to the QB. So we'll see where that all goes. All right, free agency list came out today from Pro Football Talk. Top 100 NFL free agents with free agency coming up in a couple of weeks. Tell you how many Lions made that list, and we will do that coming up next right here on Locked on Lions. It's a Monday edition. Locked on Lions for today, brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And the game tips off. The NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. How about your Detroit Pistons? They have won 6 in a row. If you had the over last night, it went way over as the Pistons beat the Hawks like 144-140. A lot of defense in that game. But regardless, Detroit won. You know, the Pistons won again. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game or even if you missed the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Whether you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, you've never felt like you've missed your chance to win some money. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you can get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. I saw this great list today from Pro Football Talk, and I know some of you get upset with Mike Florio and he ruffles some feathers, but the list today at PFT was courtesy of the author Charian Williams, one of Florio's writers. Pro Football Talk's top 100 free agents for the start of the 2025 league year. Just to give you a little bit of an example of what they're looking at, they've got T. Higgins at number 1, the Bengals wide receiver. Sam Darnold, the Vikings quarterback, at 2. Kansas City guard Trey Smith, 3. Edge rusher for the Eagles, Josh Sweat, at 4. Buccaneers wideout Chris Godwin is 5. Rams left tackle Ronnie Stanley, 6. Jets corner DJ Reed, 7. Dolphin safety Javon Holland, 8. Chiefs linebacker Nick Bolton, 9. And Cowboys D tackle Osa Idigozua is 10. Now, I don't need to tell you guys because our audience is very good and very knowledgeable about football. That is a very, very weak top 10. Sam Darnold's the second best free agent. Sam Darnold had a great year, Pro Bowl year. Nick Bolton's a good player. Ronnie Stanley. I mean, these are good players, but there's nothing there that I'm going, wow, that's a top 10 for free agents. It's a weak crop. As far as the Lions are concerned, coming in at number 19, the first Lion on this list, top 20 free agent, is Carlton Davis, the cornerback, who, of course, came over via trade last year, was on the last year of his deal, made $13 million, and I thought made a heck of an impact for this team. I'm a Carlton Davis fan. I hope the Lions can retain him. He comes in at number 19, behind Atlanta center Drew Dahlman and Eagles linebacker Zach Bond. Zach Bond should be higher than 20. He had a great year this year. Great year. The next Lion on the list, coming in at number 31, is Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle, who really had his best season this year. He was healthy. PFF graded him out very well. And he's another guy that I think the Lions will try to retain, but is he too injury prone, and will he price himself out of the market to stay in Detroit? There's only so many guys you can draft, develop, and keep. And that's been the Lions' philosophy from day one. But Levi comes in at number 31, right behind Eagles D tackle Milton Williams and Chargers cornerback Asante Samuel. Next on the list, as far as Lions go, is Kevin Zeitler, who checks in at number 38. I think that is way too low. I think Kevin Zeitler is at least a top 30 free agent on this list. Guy was solid as a rock at right guard. PFF graded him out in the 80s. I thought he was really good. And he's the guy that, look, I think if I had to pick, if only one of these three guys was back next year, Davis, Onwuzurike, Zeitler, I would take Davis. But Kevin Zeitler, if he were to come back, I mean, you're talking about the most important or the best unit on the Lions. They keep Jared Goff upright. They mash people in the run game. And Zeitler, I thought, was a major upgrade this year for Detroit at right guard. So He comes in at number 38, right behind Steeler running back Najee Harris, which is a joke. Come on. Zeitler's better than Najee Harris. And I know he's 36. And Chiefs wide receiver Hollywood Brown. Those are the only Lions that made the list. If you are interested, number 100 is the Eagles running back Kenneth Gainwell. All right. That's random. There are a couple players on this list that if the Lions were to lose, let's say Carlton Davis, that I wouldn't mind grabbing. And I got to be honest, Davis comes in at number 19. We've talked a little bit about some of the Niners, Charvarius Ward, who are on this list. Vikings corner Byron Murphy is 25. Byron Murphy's excellent. Pro Bowl player, really, really good football player. Where's Charvarius Ward? I thought I saw him on this list earlier. 49ers. Am I missing Ward? Because he's good. I'm in the 80s now. I might have missed him. Carlton Davis is, Ward is 13. He's a good player too, right? Comparable to Carlton Davis. But I'm on the bandwagon. I know I put my neck out there for him. I think Carlton Davis just added a lot to that room. Veteran player, fit the culture. Amik Robertson loved him. Terry Arnold loved him. All the guys loved playing with him. And yes, he's injury prone. And yes, he broke his jaw and missed the playoff game. But that's the guy that I would want to bring back. So we'll wait and see. We got free agency started in the non-tampering period on March the 10th. That'll be a free-for-all day here on Locked On Lions. All right, you saw the news over the weekend. Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, reporting it that the Rams and Matthew Stafford are still talking, and that marriage is not over by any stretch of the imagination. But Stafford wants a new deal, and he wants $50 million a year. And quite honestly, I don't blame him. Jordan Love just got $55 million a year. Who's better? Jordan Love, and I know he's a lot younger, like 14 years younger, but who's the better quarterback? Stafford or Love? I'm taking Matt Stafford. Guy can still sling it. He's still got 4 or 5 years left. And reports are out there now that teams like the Steelers, the Giants, the Browns are interested in Matthew Stafford. Certainly, just like when he was in Detroit and the Fords called him and said, "Where do you want to go?" I think Stafford will have a say in where he wants to play. If you're the Cleveland Browns and you've had no quarterback since Bernie Kosar and one playoff win, Baker Mayfield, with no fans in the stands in Pittsburgh years ago, why wouldn't you trade for Matthew Stafford? Now, again, I know they've mortgaged draft picks in the past to get Deshaun Watson. That was a complete disaster. But that's a team in Cleveland that, let's say you go and get Stafford. Wouldn't Myles Garrett go, all right, I'll stay? Wouldn't that make Garrett happy? Matthew Stafford is a top 15 NFL quarterback. Top 10, arguable. But for people to say, oh, he just shouldn't get $50 million a year, why not? You could make the argument that Stafford is still better than Goff. Goff got $50 million. Jordan Love got 55. Trevor Lawrence is in the 50s. I didn't mean for this to become a Stafford Stan show, but dude can still play. I don't care about the wife. I don't care about the commercials. Matt Stafford had the Rams in the lead in the second half in Philly against the Super Bowl champions. So, and that was the divisional round of the playoffs. Won a playoff game this year, did Matthew Stafford. Nearly won another one. If he wants $50 million a year, he should get it. He should. Because there are other quarterbacks. I mean, he took a pay cut when he re-upped with the Rams after the trade, and he got $40 million a year. He's below Kyler Murray, too, who's a good player, but not as good as Stafford. So keep an eye on that. Should be interesting to see where that goes. And if you're the Rams, you're right there. You got a really good young defense, Puka Nacua, good running backs, good tight ends. You're building your offensive line. You drafted Avila. You spent $17 million on Jonah Jackson. You're going to let Stafford walk and do what? Sign Aaron Rodgers for a year? I think he's going to end up staying with the Rams. I do, but keep an eye on that. All right, coming up next, let's do a call of the day. You want to be our call of the day? We've talked about it many, many times. You go to speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page, speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page. If you want to be our call of the day, we will have one of those coming up next. Before we do our call of the day, we want to send out our very best and thinking about Andy Isaac. For those of you that did not follow or are not following World of Isaac on social media, on Twitter, back when Twitter was cool, 2010, 2011, World of Isaac was always funny, was always very into Detroit sports, and was a great follow on social media and a lot of fun and a great guy. He also wrote for a couple of websites, sports websites, and was just an all-around good guy. And anybody that was in Detroit sports radio like I was and all kind of interacted with him. Andy is recently announced that he's in hospice care. He's been battling cancer for years, and the end, unfortunately, is near. So we're thinking about Andy Isaac today. World of Isaac, one of the best, all the best to Andy, and keep fighting, buddy. And F the Bears. All right, time for a little call of the day. Let us do that, shall we? Nick is checking in from out of state, and we're going to get our call of the day today. Again, speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page if you want to be our call of the day. Here is Nick Knight checking in. Let's take a listen.
Hey, Matt, this is Nick calling in again from the Hartford, Connecticut area. I've heard you say in the pod a couple of times that the last draft from Brad Holmes wasn't his best, and I kind of want to push back on that a little bit. If I go through the guys in my head, like Wingo played well before his injury, Mahogany played very well, even though it wasn't for a very long time. Vaki played well on special teams, and I think that's why they drafted him. And even Terrion Arnold had his ups and downs, but I liked what I saw out of him. And then the jury's still out on Manu and Rakestraw, but even if they turn out to be total busts, I think it was still a pretty decent draft. I don't know. What do you think, Matt? Thanks for all you do.
All right, thank you, Nick. Appreciate the chime in there as our call of the day. Here's the thing. When I say, and I've said this on the pod before, and Nick's right, I've said that the 2024 draft was not Brad Holmes' best. And it might actually be his weakest, but you know what? It's still a lot better than a lot of other teams. You're right. Terrion Arnold, Mekhi Wingo, Christian Mahogany all have, I think, very bright futures. Jury is still out on Vaki, Manu, and Rakestraw. And I think Sione Vaki can be a good player. But the impact players that he drafted right away, when he got Aiden Hutchinson, and Hutchinson was an impact rookie right away. Penei Sewell, impact rookie right away. Aleem McNeil made an impact right away. Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta. All right. List goes on and on. The 2023 draft with Gibbs, Branch, Campbell, and Laporta is one of the best drafts in NFL history for a team. It just is. So it's tough to top that when the next year, first of all, you're drafting 27th, and then, of course, they were 28th, and they moved up to 23rd to get Arnold. You drafted more of a project in the second round in Rakestraw, who you knew was injury prone. And then you made a couple of trades to move up to get guys like Manu and Vaki, et cetera. So, yes, it wasn't Brad Holmes' best draft. But Nick's not wrong. I just say it wasn't his best because in previous years, he hit so many home runs. I mean, we talked about at one point about this time a year ago, every single player, including guys like Lucas and Jefferson and guys that were taken in the 7th round, were still on the roster. Every guy that he had taken was still a part of the roster. There wasn't a guy like a 6th-round pick that, you just discard. Or, Lucas, the cornerback, 7th rounder, didn't make it. He was back on the team. And now he's gone again. But still, Jamar Jefferson, all of these guys stuck. And that's almost impossible. And it's a testament to Brad Holmes, his scouting staff, all the people in the front office, and how well they've done. And that's why when people talk about the Myles Garrett trade, it's almost become a drinking game, but that people scoff at the opportunity and the idea that Brad Holmes would pull the trigger because he's done so well drafting. And again, if you draft well, you retain these players for multiple years at very low salary. And that's how you win in this league. When Philadelphia went for it and signed every free agent under the sun, they didn't succeed as well as they did this year when they drafted the last few years so well and built up the young players. And then they were able to sprinkle into free agency and not have to overspend, cut players, and finagle and maneuver around the cap. So Brad Holmes has won over the last really 3 years, 9 wins, 12 wins, 15 wins with younger football players, with drafted football players, and teams that have not drafted well. I mentioned before Cleveland, and I know the Browns haven't had a lot of first-round picks because they traded for Deshaun Watson, but the guys they've taken in the 2nd and 3rd round have not worked out. Right? How have the New England Patriots done in the draft in the last few years under Belichick, especially on offense, and then last year under Mayo? Terrible. Very, very bad. Right? Their drafts have not hit. Why have the New York Giants failed the last couple of years? Because Joe Shane's drafts have been abysmal and have not put out young players that have really made an impact. And hence they're poor in the standings. Same with Dallas last few years. Cowboys drafts, nothing special, right? Nothing great. And this is why people like the Bears a little bit and see some of the picks that they've made and see some of the younger guys that are now starting to develop and how well they've done. Same with Green Bay in the division. So, yes, Nick is right. I've been a little bit harsh about last year's draft. It is more of a second or 3rd year wait and see type of situation. But man, the Lions hit so many home runs so quickly that it's tough to grade grade low when the Lions have had these A's and A- drafts. All right, Nick Baumgardner from theathletic.com, live and direct from Indianapolis tomorrow, right here on a Tuesday, Locked on Lions as Combine Week has commenced.